Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Atanu Agarwal, co-founder of Upside AI, which helps investors in making investment decisions. Atanu is a graduate of IIT Bombay and has worked for companies such as Credit Suisse, Tenzing Acquisition Corp, and Vedanta Capital before starting his own venture in 2017. Hi Atanu, welcome to ELI.
Hey, hi Priya. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, sure. So, as you touched upon it a little bit, I graduated from IIT Bombay in 2011, and although I'm an engineer, I've always been fascinated by finance. And I guess the two things are closely linked, right? Engineering is about analysis, and so is finance. So it's not totally dealing. And specifically in finance, what's inspired me is always investing, right? So I'm been a huge disciple of Benjamin Graham, who's the father of fundamentals based investing, since my college days. I consider him my guru. I've grown up reading books like Security Analysis and The Intelligent Investor, which definitely a lot of credit goes to them for even the venture that I've started. So that's been my interest, and because I was always interested in finance, when I graduated from IIT Bombay, I joined Credit Suisse in the investment banking team, because investment banking is a great first step to the investment world because it teaches you all the basics, right? It allows you to get a slightly detached view of investing, and sort of puts you through this hard grind, which teaches you a lot, right? So I think that was my first job, and then after that, I was able to crack into the investment world where I worked with a private equity and venture capital fund in New York. The fund manages about $1 billion across different asset classes. So I did some early stage investing, growth stage investing, and also I did public markets investing. And there, I had the good fortune of working directly with the founder and CEO of the fund, uh, a person called Mr. Parag Saxena, who's been a veteran venture investor since the early 80s. So I worked directly with him and in close coordination with him, and hence I learned a lot from him, and I consider him to be my mentor, right? My a large part of my professional life has been shaped by him, and so that's what I did till about 2017, 2018,
Okay.
and I then started Upside AI along with two of my co-founders, Kanika, who I met at Credit Suisse. She was also in the investment banking team with me, and Nikhil, who I've known since the age of 15. We are best friends. We prepared for IIT JEE together, went to IIT Bombay together. In IIT Bombay, we were in the same hostel. And then coincidentally, we were also at Credit Suisse together, where he was the algo trading team and I was in the investment banking team. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me and my journey so far.
Uh, we will talk about what is Upside AI. Before that, let's set the context by understanding what is a fundamental analysis.
Right. So fundamental analysis is, I would say, at least in India, if not the world, is what most dollars in investing is put behind. And it is simply, if I was to put it in layman language, it is simply about studying a company, studying the balance sheet, profit and loss statement, cash flow statement of a company, learning about its business, and figuring out whether what the value of this company is. And how do you figure out intrinsic value? There is, and despite anything anyone tells you, there is only one way to figure out intrinsic value, which is you have to estimate the cash flows, future cash flows, and discount them back. In the investing world, it's called discounted cash flow analysis, right? Which is the core of fundamental investing, and everything else is a derivative of that. So fundamental investing is basically being able to analyze businesses and figure out what their fair value is, and whether you can you're able to buy the stocks of these companies at below their intrinsic value, right? That is essentially the game. That is what fundamental.
Okay. So if I rephrase what you have said, fundamental analysis is knowing the true value of a company and buying those company shares which are undervalued.
Yes, I mean that is the definition, but there are different styles of even fundamental investing, right? The most traditional style is value investing, which is buying $100 bill at $80, right? Which is a company that's worth $100 today is buy it. There's also growth right? Where you are basically giving the company credit for what's going to happen in the next 10 years. For example, let's say Zomato, since it's the talk of the town. Zomato today is a loss-making company and has always been a loss-making company, right? But it is being valued at 30 times its revenue. Why is that? It is being valued at 30 times its revenue because people think that 10 years from now, given that it is one of the two major players in the food tech space, and given that India is very underpenetrated for restaurants and generally food tech, and seeing what's happened in the US and China, that Zomato will grow in the growth that it will have over the next 10 years. People are discounting that back and saying, okay, the value of that growth today is this much. So there are different ways of using fundamental analysis, right? One way is value, the other way is growth, right? So that's
Understood. Fair enough. Let's talk about Upside.ai. What is it?
So Upside AI, the genesis, the mission. Let me put it this way: that the mission comes from the belief that humans are below average investors, are bad investors, humans in general, right? And investing decisions should be taken by technology and by machines who are able to keep emotions out of it and be totally rational, make totally rational decisions. The reason why humans are bad investors is because humans are emotional beings, and we tend to let our emotions come in the way and do the exact opposite of what we should be doing in those times, right? And this is not something is an hypothesis. This is well proven. If you look at, there are lots of research and data which shows that over long periods of time, human fund managers have underperformed the benchmark. There is research around stuff like herd mentality and loss aversion, which causes this underperformance, right? So this is a very well researched, well talked about thing, where humans on average are bad investors. And that's why at Upside AI, what we want to do is we want machines and technology and rules to basically drive all investment decisions. And that is what our products do today. And that is what our products will do in the future.
Okay. To a layman, what I'm assuming, Upside.ai will tell this is the stock you should invest and this is you should not. Am I correct?
Yes. Correct. So today, Upside AI is a registered PMS. The full form of PMS is Portfolio Management Service with SEBI, right? So we are a SEBI registered entity. SEBI is the market regulator for the securities market in India, right? So they regulate everyone, mutual funds, everyone is who SEBI regulates. So what that allows us to do is it allows us to provide portfolio management services to high net worth individuals and family offices. The reason is the minimum investment that we can accept from any single investor is 50 lakh rupees, right? So by the virtue of that threshold or that minimum amount, we cater to a certain type of investor, which is a high net worth individual or a family office or an institutional investor who has a large corpus, and we manage part of that corpus. But yeah, in absolutely simple terms, that is what we do. We take a part of your corpus and we invest it in a portfolio of stocks based on our algorithm. And our goal is to be able to give you consistent returns that beat the market at reasonable risk metrics, right? At taking reasonable risks, because in investment, a common man always hears only return, right? People only think about मेरे को 25% return दिया, मेरे को 35% return दिया, but return is just one side of the coin. The other side is how much risk did you take to get the return. If today someone tells you I made 100% return on Bitcoin in the last, because in FD you are taking almost no risk. In Bitcoin you're taking the absolute other side, right? So our goal is to provide superior risk-adjusted returns to our investors. That's our goal.
Okay. Tell us about what is the scale of operation right now?
Sure. So we today let me tell you a little bit about journey, so get a feel for where we started. So we started this in 2018, as I told you, and the way it was sometime in 2017. This idea came to me, and this framework for the algorithm, the core product came to me, and I roped in Nikhil and Kanika, and we discussed it, and we all liked it, and we decided to build it out together. Right? Initially, it was just a science experiment. We're just saying, okay, will this work? Right? And we built the product. And the good thing about finance, or the good thing about investment, is there's years of data available, decades of data, clean data available to test your product. So we used the data to backtest our product, and we saw that the product was performing very well in the backtest. So we said, okay, there is something here that is of value. So we said the first thing we must do is we must go and register with SEBI and get a PMS license, so that as soon as we launch the product, we start building a track record and start doing it in a proper structured manner. So in 2018, we got a PMS license, and we said that before we go to external investors and go to third-party investors and take capital from them, we will take some friends and capital from only friends and family, right? So my ex-boss, Kanika's ex-bosses, we took money from a very small group of people, and we said, let's test the strategy on this money in live markets, right? So we tested that for a year and a half, not accepting any other capital. And we built track record, right? One is we built track record also, and one is also we tweaked the process a bit. We figured out, okay, this is the core algorithm remains the same, but we tweaked the process a bit and we finalized the product. So we came out of beta in July 2019, right? So that is when we started accepting external dollars. And in the past 1 year, we've gone from a 7-8 crore AUM to today an 80 crore AUM. And by AUM, I mean assets under management. So we are managing 80 crore rupees of capital from various HNIs and family offices. And besides that, we've also raised some venture funding. In June of this year, we raised about $1.2 million from India Partners, which is a Hyderabad-based venture capital fund, and Vijay Kedia, who's a veteran stock market investor. Anyone in stock markets knows who Vijay Kedia is. And from Ajay Nanamati, who's the ex-chairman of Syndicate Bank, ex-head of 3M in India, and he's in fact chairman of Quantum Securities, which is a large fund. And Mr. Gopichand Katragadda, who used to be the ex-CTO of the overall CTO of Tata Group, and himself now is running an AI company. So we raised a $1.2 million round from these 4 investors. So that's where we are at. We are managing 80 crores of capital from of HNIs and family offices, and in terms of our company, we raised some venture capital.
I'm curious to know how do you position your company to others? Would you say it's a technology company, or would you say it's a fund management company? And how would you like to evolve in coming days?
Yeah, I think the answer is, it's an easy answer. You're a fintech company, right? I think both these 2 pillars is very important. Of course, we are a fund management company. That's our primary business, but fund management combined with technology, that is a core part of a mission. So one can't be seen independently as the other. So I would say we are a fintech company. And as I told you right at the onset, our intention is to use technology and let technology drive investment decisions in all our products. We don't want to be the fund manager. I, Kanika, Nikhil don't want to be the fund manager. We want technology and the machine to be the fund manager, right? So that's what we tell people, that today 95% of the market is 95% of the capital in the Indian markets is managed by humans. Whether it's mutual funds or other PMSs or big funds, they're all managed by these star fund managers who come up with stock ideas and invest them, right? That's how it works in India. But that's not how it is around the world. In the US, the majority of the capital is invested either through rules-based ETFs, where humans are not involved, or computers, right? So non-humans drive the majority of capital, a majority of the capital in the US market. And that, I think that's where India is also going, and we are at the forefront of that, where we are probably one of the first few funds that are doing that and want to do that at scale.
Okay. Now the next question. The fund you have raised, would you be using it into technology, or what else? So what I'm trying to ask here is, you were already successful in doing what you do. You had built a technology that manages funds. So why not continue managing more fund? Why raise investment?
Right. I think that's a very good question. And I think that's something we debated extensively internally before we did raise the money. It was inbound, like the interest was inbound. We didn't actually formally go out in any fashion, any significant fashion to raise capital. So it was a discussion point between us whether we should continue to remain bootstrap and just grow our business or raise money, because we can't do that. We could have just bootstrapped the business. The reason we raised it is a couple of things, right? One, I think the investors that we have got on board are completely aligned with our vision. They completely trust the team, trust our vision, and there is complete alignment there. And they add a lot of strategic value, right? Whether it is Satish Andrat and the NDR partners, or it is Vijay ji, or it is Ajay ji, or Gopi, they all add tremendous value to us, right? Because they will evangelize our product, evangelize our name, that will help us improve our brand name, and they will give us strategic sort of insight into how to grow, right? How, which channels to use, and it's not trivial. These are things that we value their experience in those, in that regard. And the second thing is obviously the capital that's come. It helps us where it will be deployed mainly is people, right? So we are looking to expand the team, not too much. Like we'll never be a very large team. We'll always be around a 10% team. And but the kind of people we want on board will be very high quality people, right? We're looking to hire a couple of salespeople who come with existing relationships in the industry, right? Because today, till now, whatever we have built, we built it organically, literally through cold calls, right? Because we don't come from public markets, the three of us, right? So we had to do it organically. So we want someone on board who comes from the industry, who believes in our product, and will be able to open many more doors much more quickly. So that's one area. And then of course, I think another area that we're investing in is we are building a team so that today technology drives the core function, which is investment, right? But we want to be an end-to-end tech platform. So right from client onboarding to investment, which anyway today we're doing, to everything else, right? Portfolio tracking, everything. We want to be an end-to-end tech platform where we are able to do every single thing with the where technology drives, right? So we are definitely also going to bring people on board and work with high quality people who will help us build out that platform.
Okay. Did you pivot your model or the product in between? If you have, then tell us about it.
So we haven't pivoted much. I mean, in the sense that we have been, the core part of the business has remained the same, where our mission statement and who we are targeting has remained the same. We did a small experiment in the middle, which and it was really an experiment. This was not at the start of the journey, or now it was in the middle of the journey, where sometime last year we said, I told you, right now we target the top end of the pyramid. We only target HNIs and only large check size. So we said, let's try and test how retail behavior, because as you know, during the pandemic or over the last year and a half, a lot of retail investors have come into the stock market. There have been record number of brokerage accounts that have been opened, and lots of people are dabbling in the stock market. So we said, let's try and understand retail behavior. So we partnered with a platform called Smallcase, right, which is a very good platform, great team, and we really enjoyed working with them. So we just launched our product on that platform for a few months to see what retail behavior is like, and we got a good response. We had over 200 investors through that platform just organically without spending any marketing dollars. But we decided to put that on hold because it was distracting us from our core business. Right, our core business is to focus on these large check sizes and grow it. And today we were not built to focus on retail and deal with the compliance and all that. So we said that for the next 2 years, we will not do retail. We will only focus on the core part of the business, grow that, and once we have 1,000 crores of assets under management, at that point we'll look at retail again. Right. So that was like not a pivot, but an experiment we did, and then we took a call based on that experiment.
Fair enough. Tell me about some growth hacks that you have tried over time, which have given you very good results in terms of acquiring customers, or it can be anything.
Yeah. So there are two ways we acquire customers, right? In our business, there's a direct channel and there's an indirect channel. Direct channel is, let's say you want to invest with us. You'll come and you'll directly approach us through our website or write to us on an email ID or saying, I want to invest with you. And we talk to you, you get convinced, and you give us your money. Right? So that's one channel. The second channel is indirect, where most of the money in Indian markets or for family offices and our customers is managed through distributors or wealth managers or advisors. Right? So the there's a layer in between where these people advise people where to invest. And so the other channel to grow is you approach you you partner with these distributors to go and distribute a product, right? And that's a much faster way to grow. That's the most scalable way to grow. The direct way is you make more money, but it's slower. The growth is slower on the direct side. So just I want to explain that structure. So I think one challenge we were facing initially is that because we were a new kid on the block, right? We were not really, we are all pretty young. We are not from the public markets, right? And we were using technology, right? So there was three things all put together. So we were finding it hard to uh, convince people that that we know what we are doing and see, look at our product. Like even though we had really good returns, ultimately this business is about trust. So you have to make this person in front of you trust that okay, you will be that you will do actually do what you're saying, right? So and that takes time, right? That you can't manufacture. So the one thing we did which really changed is we started actively doing PR, right? Where we decided that we will work with an agency and we will essentially do a lot of organic content where I, Kanika, we've written a lot of articles for big publications like Mint, Economic Times, and not on our product, just generally about investing, generally about the markets, not selling our product or anything, just putting out a lot of content, putting our thoughts out there, how we think about different things, about cryptocurrency, about inflation, different topics, right? And that I think has really worked for us because people have now started to recognize our names. They're recognizing our company's name. They are seeing that okay, what we say makes a lot of sense. They see us as balanced investors. So I think that has really helped us build our brand, helped us sort of put us out there. We have a community now on Twitter. I mean, it's a very small community, but people know us, right? Basically, today, if you go to anyone in this market system, people will they'll know there is this Upside AI which is using technology to invest, right? So that's I think one of the growth hacks that we did, where we decided to create a lot of organic content and not focus on selling so much, but just creating a brand and creating a profile for the company and for the founders. So that's one thing.
Now we'll talk about your personal journey as an entrepreneur.
Sure.
Tell us why you have chosen the path of entrepreneurship. What makes you an entrepreneur?
Right. So for me, I always wanted to be. As I told you, I always wanted to be an investor. I loved investing. I loved finance. That's all. That's always what I wanted to do, right? And I think investing is the kind of business that you can do alone. You can go about doing it alone because it's in the end of the day, you're judged in a very simple manner. Your performance is everything. It's a very, you live and die by a performance number. If you can't deliver performance, you won't be successful. If you can deliver performance, you will be successful. So for me, I was very clear that after getting the requisite experience, I wanted to branch out on my own and create a investment company which is driven by me and sort of is follows my philosophy of investing, right? And I think that's what drove me, right? It's something I love doing. It sounds very geeky, but I really don't read fiction books. I hardly read any fiction books. The only thing I read is non-fiction, and it has always has some connection to investing, right? That's what I love doing. In my free time, I love opening an annual report and reading it. It all sounds very geeky, but that's something I just love doing, and I wanted to maximize my time in doing that. And the only way you can do it is when you run your own company, right? When you're working in another company, you have thousands of other things. You have a boss. The boss wants you to do certain things. Not that I mean I had a great boss, but I'm thinking in general when you work in different companies, you have your attention is not focused on what you want to do. You have to listen to others and sort of often spend your time on what you may not want to. So I think the biggest motivator for me to be an entrepreneur was my time. I wanted to be the owner and dictator of my own time and where I'm spending them, which I wanted to be in investing.
Okay. Can you tell us about some of the challenges that you have faced while building and growing this venture?
Yeah, I mean, I briefly touched upon it before. I think the one thing I didn't expect when I started this venture, because I'm an engineer and then I'm an investor. So you, as I said, you live and die by the numbers, right? So I thought if our product performs and we have the numbers, people will automatically give us money. Right? That's all that matters. But that's not true, right? And it was a learning that took some time. I think the people element, the the need for people to trust you and to get them to trust you is an extremely underrated, not underrated. I mean, everyone knows this stuff, but it's an extremely tough thing to accomplish. And it is not anything anyone can teach you, right? It is only something you have to learn, right? And I think we have to convince people that we are what in the investment world is called fiduciary, where we will be shepherds for their capital, and we will make sure that we always do the best thing for our investors, right? That is, you have to convince people that that is your philosophy and you actually stick to it. I think that has been very hard. It's been something that's been interesting to learn, but it's been a hard thing to accomplish, and it's taking time. And I think now we're getting there, right? That now people trust us and trust what we're saying and know that, you know, if Atanu or Kanika or Nikhil are saying something, then they'll do that, right? So I think that was one of the hard things of being an entrepreneur, establishing trust with your customers.
Any failures that you have gone through during your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I won't call it a failure, but there are in our business there are always ebbs and flows, right? Especially because it's so linked to the market. So when COVID hit, I told you that we launched our product in 2019, right? Formally launched it in the market, and we did very well for 6 months, and then COVID hit, and the markets crashed, right? The markets, in March 2020, the markets were down as much as 30-35%, right? And we, I mean, our performance was still very good. I mean, in a sense, we also were down, but we were doing better than the market, right? Even after COVID for the first 3 months, but we were not getting investors, right? And the reason for that is again this human bias. I told you that I believe that humans are bad investors, and the reason is when the market crashed, people, long-term investors, to say, okay, the market has crashed. Even if it crashes some more, if I'm investing for the long term, I should invest some money. And then if it crashes more, I'll invest more money. But people didn't do that. They got scared. So people wanted to sit on the sideline and say, okay, let this market crash more, then I'll invest. Right. So that phase was tough, because even though we were performing well, and even though logically, and people should have invested more money, people did invest money for 2-3 months. No one wanted to give new capital. They said, okay, let's wait. No, your product is good, I'll give you money, but let's wait for 2-3 months. The market will crash more. The market will crash more. Of course, it didn't crash more. It's only gone up since then. But that was a phase that was tough. 3 to 4 month phase, where we were not able to grow, because basically investors wanted to sit on the sideline. So you have to ride those phases and accept that there are many things that are not in your control, and you have to keep doing what you do and stick to your discipline and rules, and that's what you do. So that was a tough phase.
Okay. Just last two questions left. Tell us, what is the meaning of entrepreneurship to you? How do you define the term entrepreneur?
I think entrepreneur is essentially about underwriting risk, right? When you branch out on your own, you are underwriting a lot of risk in the hope of very high returns, right? Because I'm an investor, that's how I think, right? So for me, an entrepreneur is essentially a risk taker, because he's branching out, and he's letting the security of a salary and a big organization and a provident fund and everything go, and he's saying, okay, I'm going to go out alone and build something from scratch, create something from nothing, right? And that is, I think, essentially what being an entrepreneur is, right? And of course, the second element is, as I said, being in control of your own time. Today, all of us who work for someone or work in a company, what are we selling? We're selling our time. That's what essentially what we're selling. And being an entrepreneur means you have control of your own time, and it's how lucrative it can be for you. So I think that's what being an entrepreneur.
I think that is a very interesting perspective. Final question. Tell us what are the things that you have learned as an entrepreneur which we can take away and apply to our ventures.
Yeah, I think because I've been on both sides, right? I've also been a venture investor, and now I've also been on the entrepreneur side. The one thing I will tell you is that because of the explosion of social media, and news websites, and everything, when an entrepreneur starts out, sometimes some people start out with the goal of raising venture money,
Mm.
right? Which I think is a mistake. When you start out, you should start out because you love the business. You should focus on that, and then focus on saying that, okay, this is an interesting area. There's a problem to be solved here, and if I solve this problem, it can be a nice, profitable, sustainable business. uh, and that should be your main focus.
Mm.
Of course, I like this. Just because edtech, people should not start out an entrepreneurial journey just because there is a lot of buzz about that particular sector, and you want to raise venture fund. You shouldn't start an edtech startup just because edtech is doing really well right now, and you think that if you start something, you'll be able to raise venture money. That should not be the primary. The primary goal should be that I'm doing something I love. I'm solving a problem I care about, and I know that if I solve this problem, I can build a nice, profitable business, sustainable, profitable business. I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind when you're starting. Not that I'll be able to raise venture money. That's a byproduct of having, being able to build a good business. Right? It's a byproduct.
Okay. I think that is it from my side. I'm done with the questions. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for your time, Atanu. I would say my best wishes for Upside AI.
Thanks, Priya. Thanks for having me, and lovely talking to you. Thank you.